Well, good morning, everybody. Another edition of On the Road again with Shaggy. And we will see how things work out this time around. This is the first time recording in the new vehicle, so I have no idea what the road noise is going to be like. I don't have my optimum microphone placement yet. I'm still playing around with basically everything, so this might be another throwaway episode, which is why I haven't put too many of them out lately, because I just haven't been happy with the way that they've been turning out. So if this ends up being one of those, you'll never hear it, is basically what it comes down to. So I've been busy. I have, like I said, I got rid of the old vehicle. I got a new one. This is the first time ever that I've gotten a new car. And I mean a new car. Usually it's always been new to me, but it's been a used one of some type. So this time I thought, well, you know what? I will go ahead and I will get a new to anyone car. So maybe look for a video podcast of that at some point in the future. But probably I'll forget about that as well. But I ended up with a 2018 Honda Accord Sport model, if you're interested. You can see it online. It's a pretty nice little car. It probably has a little bit more road noise than the Santa Fe did, but it's handy for me. It gets almost twice the gas mileage that my old car got. So this morning, I really don't have a whole lot of topics in my head, other than maybe we can talk a little bit about Elon Musk. Okay, he's been in the news recently because he went on the Joe Rogan podcast. And I guess he kind of went off on a little bit of an existential rant. And then he smoked weed. Which, alright. Joe Rogan's based in California. I suppose it's been approved for recreational use there. Decriminalized, I guess is the proper term for it. So, Tesla stock plummeted the next day. Well, not plummet, but it did go down. And they're saying that Musk is losing his mind, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here's my question. All right, does smoking pot in a place where it's not illegal, all right, necessarily mean that the guy is losing his mind or whatever? And the fact that he went a little trippy and, maybe talked a little bit of weird nonsense on a radio show mean anything? I mean, he could have just as easily have gotten drunk and said some crazy stuff. I don't think anything that he said was racist or sexist or whatever. So they can't get him on that. I think he just said that he imagined what it would be like to be a horse. So, sure, it's high times, but, it's not incredibly weird. One of my points is, all right, if you were growing up in the 80s, all right, you know all about cocaine in the bathroom at a ton of places, all right? In fact, there were signs. I saw a sign on sale yesterday where it was, please don't use cocaine in our bathrooms. Well, there wouldn't have been mass market signs like that if it hadn't happened, okay? Executives were using cocaine. In the 70s, everybody was smoking pot. And, it happened. In the 60s, it was LSD. These things happened, and like I said, especially in the 80s and the 90s, it was coke for executives. That was the high-class drug that everybody was doing. And it wasn't just the working class. In fact, it wasn't the working class because it was too expensive. All right? So, does smoking a joint of all things, the working class weed, does that mean that he lost his mind? No. Many people have actually used pot, and I don't. All right, so I'm not a super pothead, but many people have used pot over the years. George Carlin even said he used pot for a time, but there becomes a point where it's a self-limiting drug, where the benefits outweigh it. So I don't think there was anything wrong with what he did, and I think there was a great overreaction. Now, there's plenty of other things you could get Musk for, all right? I don't think smoking weed is a thing that you necessarily need to ding him for. You could get him for calling that diver a pedo. You could get him for, making grandiose claims and not following through. You could get him for a lot of other things, but one thing you can't get him for, I don't think it's fair, is for smoking a joint on a podcast. I just think that is a step too far. I don't know, though. This is a conversation. I need to hear your feedback. Does it make sense? Do you think that was as big of a deal as the media blew it out of proportion to be? Because it definitely sounded like, to me, they were taking it a step too far. So, all right. The other thing is the school is back in session, as I just got stopped by a crossing guard. So how many of you guys have children going back into school? How many of you did the blackboard with the, I'm this many years old, I'm in this grade, my favorite food is blah, I want to be this when I grow up, yada, yada, yada. How many of you did that picture with your kids? Because growing up, that wasn't part of my life. I don't think any of us kids in the 70s or the 80s, I don't think any of us took that picture. I think it's a Pinterest generation that is doing that stuff. And, I mean, it's cute and all, but it's a little artsy-fartsy for me. It's not exactly what I probably would have wanted when I was that age, but I know that if mom and dad would have wanted it, I would have done it. But it just seems to me like, I don't know, maybe they're more in tune. I had this discussion with my wife the other day because she seemed to think, because we didn't have pictures of what I was doing when I was growing up, that meant I didn't have a good childhood. And that wasn't the case. I had a pretty good childhood. In fact, I talked to my dad about about it. And he's like, yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't around. I'm like, wait, you were around. You're being a little tough on yourself. Sure, you work third shift and you were working 2 jobs at some time. I'm like, but you were around. Sometimes it's not the amount of time that you're around, but it's the quality of the time when you're around. When my daughter was younger, her mom and I were separated, and so I wasn't around all the time, but I tried to make sure that the time that I was around, when we were together, was quality time. So you parents that are pulling double duty, trying to do the 2 or 3 jobs and be that stellar parent, I just want you to know, one, your kids will appreciate it, even if you think you're not doing a good job. They will appreciate it, even, because they know it's rough on you. They may not realize it right now, but later in life, they're going to go, you know what, mom or dad, they busted their ass to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table and everything that we needed, we had, even if they didn't, and, maybe I didn't see him all that often, but he was at the baseball game, or he was at the camp out, or he was, he did whatever, or she did whatever. I don't want this to be sexist, but, trust me, they'll figure it out once they get older. Right now, it might be rough if they're young, because they don't understand. They don't figure it out until they get older, and they realize that being an adult is hard. But, they'll get it. Don't worry. But, like I told my dad, I'm like, you were there for baseball games. He was he was an assistant coach. He was there for Cub Scouts. He was there for Boy Scouts. I'm like, you did a damn good job with what else you had going on. So I told him, don't ever think that we didn't have it good, because we did. Parents take a lot on the chin when their kids are growing up. And they just with the hope that when they're older, there's a bit of a payoff where the kids understand what all they went through. So I will never say that being a parent is easy, because it's not. When people say it's the hardest job you'll ever have, I look at them and laugh, because I never think of it as a job, because, you get into it for the most part voluntarily. I mean, even if it was a little bit of a breakage issue or a in the heat of the moment issue or whatever, you still made that decision. Whereas most work you do out of necessity. But, parenting is hard. Trust me. There's a lot of decisions. You can make a decision on being a parent every day. I was listening to a podcast, and the guy happened to have 3 boys. And he jokingly said, I understand why some dads go for milk and never come back. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. it is a tough job, man. But in the end, it's worth it. My daughter's now 22. I wouldn't trade her for the world. And, it's getting to that point where everything's fun. But trust me, there were years where it wasn't. There were a lot of years where it wasn't. And you just got to think about that. My daughter and my wife are both watching Say Yes to the Dress now, which even though she's not engaged, freaks me out a little bit because I am not ready for her to get married. Now, I know she's living with her boyfriend and has been for a little while, but I'm just not ready for her to get married. One, because I'm a big fat guy and I don't want to look that way walking her down the aisle or doing the father-daughter dance or in pictures. But also just, she's still my little girl until she's married, and then she's not anymore. The other night my wife had to go to a thing with my mom in Jacksonville, and so it was funny. My wife said, so if you're going to have a hot date, I'll be gone between this and this. So later in the afternoon, I thought, I'll see what my daughter's doing because her boyfriend usually works late. And so I asked her and we went out to dinner. And so midway through dinner, I took a picture of her, sent it to my wife and said, here's my hot date for the night. And, took a picture of my daughter and sent it to her. So she thought that was fun. But, pretty soon she's going to have, she'll be, married and start having kids of her own. And then it'll be grandpa time again, maybe. Who knows? Probably not for a while, though. My daughter's not really into... She's like I said, only 22, so she's not ready to start being in the kid zone yet. Besides, she's got nephews to spoil, so she's happy with that, where she can work them up and then send them home. But anyway, I just wanted to do a quick test on this. Also, I want to remind folks that if you dial our new number, which I don't remember off the top of my head, but you can look at it on ptrradio.com as well as on our Facebook and Twitter pages, which are PTR Radio, that you can now text our number. So if you can't get a hold of us during the show, because you're listening to it after, on the podcast feed, whatever, then you can text in whatever your comment. Now, we're only taking actual text messages right now. You can't send us like a picture or anything. But we do want to hear from you, what you think about the show, topics maybe you want to listen to, stuff like that. So you can send that in through text message, or you can email show@PTRradio if it's regarding the regular show, or on the road again at ptrradio.com. So on the road again at ptrradio.com will come to me for these little tidbits of driving information. And before anybody thinks that a missile was just about to launch from that beep, in case you heard it, no, cars nowadays are so smart, they think you're going to hit the car in front of you when it slows down to turn. So I wasn't launching an ICBM or anything. I was just going faster than it thought I needed to go for the car that evidently thought it needed to stop to make a left-hand turn. So you got to love nanny gadgets. Anyway, I'm about to pull into my parking spot. That's the end of this episode. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you the next time I'm on the road.